Okay, so this is how BloomThat blossomed into a nationwide service with the help of New Relic. And I say that pretty liberally just because we are a very small engineering team, and BloomThat has always had the motto of customizing the customer experience. We wanted to do everything personally. We wanted it to be great from the minute you land on our website to the second those flowers are delivered, and then even beyond. So we felt we had to build our own stack from the ground up. And it's been a pretty complicated route, and we've had a lot of problems along the way. But we've done some amazing things. In the life of BloomThat, we've grown from 3 requests per minute to 100 requests per minute daily average, which is pretty substantial. It was also hard to maintain that. We've integrated with more than 20 APIs, a lot being SOAP, XML, FTP, very old technologies that were just impossible to work with, especially when we had an on-demand company where everything had to be quick, simple, fast. It became very difficult. And then our most prestigious to date is expanding to the East Coast, which brought a whole new world of problems with latency from servers and connections and things like that. So we had to do a lot of testing. But before I get to the end, we need to talk about early growth issues. And this is when we were first growing. We were trying to do things really fast, really quickly, and it wasn't working quite well. So we found we had to do a lot to monitor our cloud infrastructure. And this was the most complicated issue, especially being a small team, because we have to focus on the code, the features, what's coming out, but we still had to know what's happening on the back end. And that was very difficult for us. So this is a little chart here, and we had a little problem with PHP. It started taking way too long to load. Turns out it was a configuration issue. But the best thing about it was New Relic was easily able to let us know that. We can clearly see that was not normal or average. We went in, changed the problem, and it pretty much disappeared really quickly. And being able to have this kind of insight saves us hours of troubleshooting and problem solving. And you can tell that lasted a day or so. If I would have checked it quicker, it would have been a smaller graph. Figuring out what's happening with a service when it takes a long time to process is very difficult. And early on, we had a database problem that we just couldn't get over. It turned out to be an HA proxy server, but in the end, we came out of it with a great caching mechanism. We used memcache, and it was working great until one day we realized that it was no longer working great, and this memcache replace function was just destroying our connection. So we optimized how we were caching, we changed what we were doing, we reduced the amount of indexes we were storing in the database. Nothing worked, and we pushed a lot of commits trying to fix it. Nothing worked until we really dug in and found out it was the library causing the issue. We changed it, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. This was like the most gratifying moment. Our response time went down, everything worked better, cache was faster, I got to reduce the size of that server. It's a very, very great moment in bug fixing history for BloomThat, and we have a lot of them. So this is my favorite part, the peace of mind. Being a small team, we can't test it, and we don't want to hear about our website being down or broken from customers. So we have to do a lot to ensure that we're not down, we're not going to go down, and there's no problems with the system. And that's where synthetic or browser really comes in handy. Because when we do have problems and we have customers writing in, we need to figure out exactly what's happening and fix it. And this is great. This is our website load time over 7 days. Between like 2 seconds and 2.5 seconds, we have a lot of images, so that's totally fine for us. We love it. But we need to know when there's a problem and how to fix it, and that's where browser sessions come in really handy. We're able to inspect the entire session, everything that loaded, see the waterfall of when it loaded and how long it took. The most important metric to us on these browser sessions is the first interaction. We want to make sure that when you load our web page, it is right there ready to go. It doesn't take 2-3 seconds for it to come online. It's there. You're not waiting anymore. But every once in a while, we have problems with this. And JavaScript breaks pretty much constantly. But we're able to look in, see where it broke, what happened, and what script was happening. So it looks like there, actually, we had a script. We should move on. But that looks like it was a New Relic script problem. But it was probably our fault for having something execute above it. Should have chosen a different slide. So reactionarily fixing problems is great, and it's wonderful. But I like to not have them. I don't like the emails from the CEO saying, hey, I couldn't get the app to work in this demo or anything like that. So we do a lot to test our front end. And that's where synthetics really comes in and is really powerful. So this is our front end, and this is our checkout script. Every 10 minutes from Washington and San Francisco, we're running a test to make sure that we can create an account, purchase flowers, sign in, sign out, do all the account stuff and everything, make sure everything's working fine. And when we make changes and update the website, we usually get little errors like this. City search assertion failed. That means we couldn't find the city we were looking for, which could be a problem, especially if this script is looking for San Francisco. But it gives us the ability to dive in and really look at what happened. So that red bar we saw on the other screen, this is the actual error that we're looking at. And we can see it was an internal server error, which is really bad, but we were doing maintenance at the time, so it was pretty much expected. And then we can also dig in and actually see what loaded on the actual request. So here we don't see much, but we do see it was a 500 error. And we see that the Google Analytics was actually blocked by the client, which is good, so it's not incrementing my view count. And then this was the actual screenshot of the page that loaded. So we know that when we were down or synthetics failed, this is what people were seeing on our website. And that comes in really handy, especially if we're troubleshooting an issue that makes it very difficult to dive into, like a client-side JavaScript issue, or even a PHP fatal error that's not logged in any of our backend stuff because it just didn't want to log. And we've done a lot of optimizations with this, with synthetics specifically. When we first launched synthetics, we noticed our SSL negotiation was over 600 milliseconds. Wasn't that big of a problem because it was mostly for images. We used a lot of different CDN endpoints to sort of focus what we were storing, where we were storing it, but it wasn't working for our clients. So we moved to a different CDN. We updated the way it was storing it onto one domain instead of 12, and we got our SSL negotiation down to below 10 milliseconds. Not a huge plus, but it was definitely great to be able to see and make those changes with synthetics. And here we're able to see a list of the various loads. So it takes about 17 to 20 seconds for the whole checkout to happen. And if a human can do it that fast, I feel like we would be getting a lot more sales. So now this is my favorite part, learning from data. We have all this data, we have a ton of errors, we know there's problems, we gotta fix them, but what about the good side of the data? What do we get from it that helps us grow instead of just gives us more stuff to work on? And that was the really hard part. We started out with synthetics a year ago, and we didn't know what was important. We didn't know what to track. And we read some case studies, we talked to a few people. It was still very complicated. So in the end, we just decided, let's track everything. So we built a little module that put data into every single request. So like where they were coming from, where they were going, various things that we had stored on the back end relating to the session. And we ended up with a lot of variables. This is A through E, and it goes much, much further on that list. But it came in handy because we no longer had to guess and then figure out what to track. We had it there already. And then we could go back in time to see how it worked, what it did, and if it's changed over time with new pushes to production or problems that we've fixed. And it's come in really handy to tell us a lot of great analytics about our data, and not just the website, but the actual physical on-the-ground process. So the biggest thing we used Insights for a physical process was figuring out where was the demand. During really big holidays in San Francisco, we would realize that we would suddenly start getting a lot of demand on the other side of the city, but it would be such a long drive for our drivers or our couriers, it would be difficult to fulfill the demand. So we needed a way to figure out how to move product around to be able to fulfill demand. And that's what we did with Insights. This is a little different chart, but this is kind of showing where people are at on the website. So we have a lot of people from San Francisco. There's 327 unique people on the site, mostly in Chrome, so they're having a good page viewing experience. And this really lets us see what's happening on our website and where people are shopping. We've since moved on, and we've done next day service and everything like that. So moving demand around isn't really big for us, but this helps us move product around on the website. And we've noticed that by changing our collection around, featuring different products, we're actually able to sell more. So if we have a product that's overstocked in San Francisco, we know that right now is a good time to move it to the top of the site, and we'll probably see an extra 10, 15, even 30 sales from it if it's the right time of the day, and payday was recently. So we have a large administration infrastructure, as with a lot of companies, and we're always releasing new features to it, but it takes a long time for our employees to actually adopt these features, and they're really stuck in their ways. So once they get trained on it and they start using it, they don't like to move on. And it's a big problem for us because we can't keep supporting old infrastructure and new infrastructure at the same time. We need really to move on, get on with our lives, and work on better systems. So this was a feature we released recently. It's this dispatch feature, and we released it just in the beginning of 2015 when you see that drop, but it took forever for our employees to get on it. And then so we started releasing more features, and then we got a little bit of an adoption. Then more features, a little bit more, but it still wasn't the whole company using it, and we no longer could support the old orders. So we eventually started removing features from one of the dash and providing more training, and suddenly it was adopted, and now everybody uses it. It's the total norm. It's been a great success story for us because it's really helped us reduce employee clicks on orders, save time, and increase customer success. So we use Insights for a lot of data and analytics on what our customers are doing, what we're doing, what everything's happening. But every once in a while, when a problem happens, we need to figure out what that customer did. And sessions are great, browser sessions are great, APM's awesome to figure out the transactions, but we really need to know the steps that user took and how they moved through our applications and what pages they saw and didn't see and things like that. So Insights gives us an amazing ability because we're tracking so much data. I can query by a user and actually see what they've done, see where they've gone, what they've hit, and if there were any problems with it. This is a very scarce amount of data, but we can see an immense amount of data related to each one of these queries and even graph it. It really helps us figure out where most of our traffic is going to and even optimize little endpoints that may be doing simple things like pulling your address book or showing you a list of zip codes, and improving little itty-bitty things like that across our entire app has really helped bring the whole customer experience together. It's quick, it's fast, it's reliable, and it's something that our customers are coming to expect. And they know that when they go to BloomThat, they're not getting that big transactional experience. There's not going to be a million options to choose from. It's going to be a curated selection. It's going to be great. And they know that if they have a problem, we're going to fix it. So we have an iOS app, and I'm not an iOS developer. I wish I was, but it's been difficult to maintain it. We have a lot of problems with it. Our APIs work great, but not always, and figuring out what's wrong and being able to fix it as a non-iOS developer is extremely difficult. Even communicating with developers becomes tricky when you can't really explain what's going on, and the CEO experienced a crash one day isn't really a bug report that we can pass along to our developers. So this gives us great insight. And we can see we actually have a pretty significant amount of crashes, but very few users affected. So it's OK, but it's definitely something we have to fix. This gives me like an overview, a great sort of pulse of how our app's doing. And we realize that with the more customers we have, obviously the more errors we're going to get. And it's just a fact of life, but we live with it. And I can dig into it, and I can really figure out what's happening with it. Being able to pass this information along to our developers, or even letting them have access to this, has been an incredible resource for us. I no longer have to sit there communicating to it, trying to recreate it, taking video of the phone to figure out what's happening. The developers can figure it out, and a lot of times they're fixing problems before I even know about it. That's the most rewarding feeling ever. Waking up to an email saying iTunes Connect has received your new repo, and it'll be live in about a week or two, depending on how fun the updates are. So I built all of our APIs, and whenever anything breaks, I'm always the first person everyone looks at. Like, hey, what's wrong with the API? Well, probably nothing, but let's check and see just in case. And so with the mobile app, we are able to really dig in and see what APIs are causing us problems and what APIs are not. So here we have a lot of problems, and it looks like the 500 internal error on our app was probably during our maintenance period. But that would be bad if that was actually happening in real time on the site, and it was way more than 5 on the count. But we're able to really dig in and see what's going on, what's happening, and what's taking the longest. And I know that just looking at this, it looks like we definitely have to fix Crashalytics. Maybe our library's old, something's wrong, but it's definitely throwing a lot of HTTP errors. And that can really degrade the customer experience, especially if that's happening during a crash. Oof, double crash. But when it comes to customer experience, everyone knows, and as we learned from the last speaker, speed and performance is key. Everything needs to be fast, reliable, run quickly. And that's where mobile network speed comes into play. We're able to see the different connections people are using. Obviously, Wi-Fi is the greatest. And we're able to see a histogram of the load times. We obviously know that a faster device is going to load our site with all of our images, all of our resources a lot faster, but we definitely need to optimize for the smaller devices too. We don't want to leave anyone out. We need to really get a hold of everything we're doing that allows us to improve the customer experience and make our mobile app easier. And this has really given us a huge benefit because, you know, local development environments on Wi-Fi works great, but it gets out into the field, maybe that takes a little too long to load, or that button's spinning just a little too long. And it looks like here we've had some people who've had a pretty bad experience on a 2G device. And I'm sure they're probably using a much older version of the app too. So in the end, we've used New Relic from the beginning. It's been probably the greatest resource we've ever signed up for, and I couldn't even see how we would do this without it. We're a super small engineering team. At our peak, we were 2 people, and being able to use New Relic to get insights into not only how our customers are buying flowers, but the experience they have on the website has really helped shape our business from being a very transactional industry to a fun customer experience. We're trying to reduce the friction between thought and action, making it so you feel something, you act on it right away. You send the flowers, you tell someone you love them, do whatever. We're trying to empower people to do that really quickly, really seamlessly, and really easily. The first time we started using New Relic, we were based off of the free version, and I decided to go on vacation for 2 days, just a weekend, nothing big. And we had a little bit of a database issue. We went from about 20 to 40 millisecond database request times up to 600 on every request. And even some were taking so long, they would hit our 30-second timeout at the load balancers. It was a disaster. PagerDuty wouldn't shut up. I just couldn't handle it. It was very complicated. My girlfriend was not having a good time watching me on the computer all weekend. And so I finally get back into San Francisco. It's Monday morning now. 48 hours has gone by, and we still have this problem. We've put in caching. We've changed out servers. We've done everything we can, and we couldn't figure it out. So we signed up for New Relic. We said, sign us up, give us the full package. We want everything. And we started digging in. Within 30 minutes, we identified a faulty card on an HA proxy server controlling our MySQL read cluster. It took us 30 minutes to find the problem and probably less than 10 to fix it, and probably 20 to fix it, because we had to build a new server, but everything worked great. Afterwards, everything returned to normal. It was perfect. And ever since then, New Relic is the only monitoring software we will ever use. So I want to open it up to questions. See if anyone has any questions for me about what we do, about our service, anything like that. If not, we can end it a little early. No? All right. Well, thank you for having me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of FutureStack.